Thank you everyone for your patience. We're going to get started. This webinar will be in English and Spanish. Please be sure to select your preferred audio channel for the best experience. If you are dialing in from a telephone and need Spanish interpretation, please hang up and call 1-415-655-0003. You will need webinar access code 2428-326-4878 and password 2473. Again, if you are dialing in from a telephone and need Spanish interpretation, please hang up and call 1-415-655-0003. You will need webinar access code 2428-326-4878 and password 2473.
Hey, Sean, is it okay for me to say it now?
Good evening. Thank you for joining us to hear an update on fine particulate matter air pollution from DEQ's Division of Air Quality. This meeting is being recorded. A copy of the recording and slides will be posted on our website after this presentation. The slides include hyperlinks to additional resources, and if you access these slides on our website, you can click to view the linked resources. Again, welcome. My name is Sean Taylor. I am the Public Information Officer for the North Carolina Division of Air Quality. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce my co-host, Jonathan Navarro, who was our NC Air Awareness team working on outreach and education for the division. Jonathan?
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, everyone. Just want to say a quick welcome and thank you for attending. Look forward to sharing information with you this evening. I'll be presenting in a little bit, but for now, to get started, I will hand it back over to Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. In this presentation, we're going to discuss recent changes to the National Air Quality Standard for Fine Particulate Matter, or PM2.5. That was revised this year by EPA and what it means for North Carolina. We're going to start off with an overview of the Division of Air Quality, our regional offices, and how we in North Carolina have worked to address air quality issues in the past. We will then review what the national air quality standards are and what this new PM2.5 standard is all about. And then we're going to take a look at North Carolina's air quality monitoring data and what it says about our current air quality status in relation to the new standard. Jonathan will go over information about PM2.5 sources, including wildfires, and detail the series of events that will take place over the next 2 years as North Carolina and EPA work to decide if the state is meeting the new standard or not. And then we're going to wrap up the presentation with information about the efforts our agency is already doing to protect the public and communicate about air quality, especially around wildfire events, and what you can do to keep yourself safe. Afterward, we will have time for questions. We have a panel of DEQ staff on the call with us tonight. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the Q&A box at any time, and we will review your questions at the end of the presentation. So why are we here? Well, there are several different types of air pollutants that our agency monitors. One of the key pollutants we deal with is what's known as fine particulate matter, also known as PM2.5. This is any really tiny particle emitted by human-caused or natural sources, such as vehicles, wildfires, industry, farms, plants, or other sources. If you breathe in enough PM2.5 for long enough of a time, you might experience health effects. So for that reason, EPA sets at the national level standards for how much pollution is acceptable in the air we breathe based on the latest health-based data. In May of this year, EPA made effective a tighter annual standard for PM2.5, lowering it from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9 micrograms per cubic meter of air. When we talk later in this presentation about this revised standard and it being set at 9 micrograms, this is what we're referring to. The really good news is North Carolina has done a fantastic job over the last several decades, really, in reducing PM2.5 emissions and improving air quality. We've cut emissions of PM2.5 in half since 1990, and we've been meeting the national standard when it has been set to 12 micrograms. Now that the revision has modified that down to 9 micrograms, that kicks off a 2-year process for EPA to designate areas of the state as either meeting or not meeting the revised standard. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So PM2.5, what is it? It might be called fine particulate matter or fine particle pollution. Sometimes it's referred to as soot, especially by the EPA. You might have heard it referred to as. It's really any type of particle, either a solid or a liquid, that's 2.5 microns in diameter or smaller. This is many times smaller than the width of a human hair. We also monitor and have standards for PM10, coarse particulate matter. PM10 is bigger, doesn't have as concerning health effects, and EPA is not changing the standards for PM10 at this time. PM2.5 is a pollutant of concern to people with asthma or lung disease and to already overburdened and vulnerable communities. That includes communities of color and low-income communities. PM2.5 is so small that when you breathe it in, it can get into your bloodstream. So in addition to contributing to short-term breathing issues like asthma, it can also affect heart health. PM2.5 can also damage our environment, including farm crops, wildlife, and natural ecosystems. So making sure that the level of air pollution in our air meets these national air quality standards is really, really important. And how do we do that? In North Carolina, the Division of Air Quality is the state agency responsible for enforcing state and federal air quality rules. We are a division of DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality. So we have DAQ, which is part of DEQ. Make sure you don't get these acronyms confused. Our division's mission statement is written on the slide here. The Division of Air Quality works with the state's residents to protect and improve outdoor or ambient air quality in North Carolina for the health, benefit, and economic well-being of all. To carry out this mission, DAQ operates a statewide air quality monitoring network, which measures the level of pollutants in outdoor air. We develop and implement plans to meet current and future air quality initiatives. We consistently develop clear and enforceable air quality permits for industry. We assure compliance with air quality rules, and our NC Air Awareness team and our staff here educates, informs, and assists the public with regard to air quality issues. DAQ's central office is located in downtown Raleigh, but in addition, 7 regional offices, which are shown here on this map, serve individual counties across the state. Each county is assigned to one of the 7 regional offices. Our regional office staff are the boots on the ground teams who inspect facilities, investigate complaints. They write our minor source air permits, respond to resident calls, run our monitors, and much more. Out of 100 counties in the state, 3 counties are served by local air quality programs, not the state. Those are Buncombe, Forsyth, and Mecklenburg counties. So more on that in a minute. I just want to mention that if you do have any questions or concerns about air quality, the regional offices are your first point of contact. They can help you find the answer or find the person who can help and can respond to your question or complaint. If you go to our website, ncair.org, there will be a link, if you scroll down, that's a screenshot of that here, to a button where you can find contact information for your regional office, or you can call our main phone number for assistance with any air quality question or concern. And again, we work closely with these 3 local air quality programs in North Carolina that have jurisdiction to enforce federal, state, and local air quality regulations in their counties. These are the Asheville-Buncombe Air Quality Agency, the Forsyth County Office of Environmental Assistance and Protection, and Mecklenburg County Air Quality. If you live in one of these counties, be sure to contact your local program for any air quality questions or concerns. All right, that was a very quick overview of who we are. I want to jump into talking about these federal air quality standards, these national ambient air quality standards, and what we know about air quality today in North Carolina. Spoiler alert, our air quality has really improved a lot. So the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or NAAQS, we often abbreviate it as, they come from the Federal Clean Air Act, last amended in 1990. The Clean Air Act requires that EPA set national ambient air quality standards for 6 principal pollutants. These are called the criteria air pollutants: ozone, particle pollution, both PM2.5 and PM10 that we talked about, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and lead. These pollutants can be harmful to public health and in the environment. So the NAAQS are allowable levels of each criteria air pollutant in our ambient or outdoor air over a specific averaging time, which could be 1 day or 1 year, for example. EPA periodically reviews the NAAQS and may revise them based on the latest research. For each pollutant, there are primary standards, which is the level set to protect public health, including the health of sensitive groups, including children, older adults, and people with existing heart or lung conditions like asthma. Then there are also set secondary standards, which protect the environment, visibility, and prevent damage to animals, plants, and buildings. So EPA sets the NAAQS at the national level, but states and local air quality agencies are responsible for implementing plans and programs to make sure their air meets these standards. The North Carolina Division of Air Quality regularly publishes an analysis of our air quality trends. Our last update was released just this past September. It found that North Carolinians today are breathing cleaner air than they have in decades. Emissions are way down. For example, PM2.5 emissions were nearly cut in half between 1990 and 2020, as I mentioned earlier. Also, sulfur dioxide as another example. Emissions there fell 94% during this same time. This is no accident. This didn't just happen. For more than 50 years now, our agency has been working with state and local leaders, industry, the public, electric utilities, and other state regulators to address air quality concerns in the state. So another big shout out to our local air quality partners in Buncombe, Forsyth, and Mecklenburg counties who have been an important part of this success. Thank you. These reductions have incalculable benefits to our health and economy, but they also produce results you can literally see. 20 years ago, an average hazy summer day at Great Smoky Mountains National Park out west looked like this. Then 10 years ago, you can start to see some improvement. And this is it today. This is what an average, quote unquote, hazy day looks like now. Visibility in our national and state parks has improved markedly in the last 20 years due to reductions in emissions of air pollutants that scatter light. Again, this is an average. There might be a few times when wildfire smoke make things a little hazier, but there are also many days that are much clearer than this. In 2021, visitors could see as far as 117 miles away at Great Smoky Mountains National Park during an average clear day, compared to just 54 miles back in 1996. And by the way, I'll mention Great Smoky Mountains is the most visited national park in the entire country. It's not Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon. It's right here in North Carolina, and that's in large part because of the beautiful mountain vistas it offers. This brings tourism dollars to the state, supporting local businesses, in addition to the tremendous health benefits that clean air provides. When I talk to folks, a lot of people are surprised to hear about the improvements in air quality. I hear people say, well, there's more cars on the road now, and there's more people in the state, and there's more business. And all of that is true. But at the same time, our air emissions has been falling rapidly. And there's a lot of reasons for this. First and foremost are those key partnerships I mentioned over the last 5 decades. We've also taken regulatory actions as well as non-regulatory voluntary actions through public education to address emissions. In North Carolina specifically, we passed the Clean Smokestacks Act back in 2002. This was a bipartisan law that required reductions from coal plants. Then we've seen a huge market shift away from coal power in the last 20 years toward cleaner fuels. Federal engine and fuel standards on cars and trucks today are greatly reducing pollution from the transportation sector, even though vehicles are driving more miles than ever before. And with the growing adoption of clean energy like solar and wind, more and more electric vehicles on our highways, we expect to see these trends continue. So it's no secret that we are all working on some challenging and complicated matters, but our efforts are working. North Carolina has been meeting or attaining every single one of the national ambient air quality standards for 3,283 days and counting. So that's almost 9 years. I really want to stop, reflect, and celebrate our continued success in working together on this shared objective. This is great news for public health and our economy. Compliance with these federal air quality standards, these public health standards, is the highest priority of the Division of Air Quality. We must continue the work that has led us to this moment, especially as we face new standards and requirements for EPA, which is what Jonathan is going to talk about next.
Great, thank you, Sean. North Carolina has been doing a very good job of meeting all of those national ambient air quality standards, just as Sean just highlighted. We took steps to improve air quality over the last several decades, and they worked. They worked really well. And they're helping us breathe now the cleanest air in decades. So it is very good news. So what has changed with regards to air quality standards? Now we want to talk about this revised particulate matter PM2.5 standard. Go to the next slide, please. So in May 2024, EPA tightened that annual health-based standard, that annual health-based national ambient air quality standard, or NAAQS, for fine particulate matter, PM2.5, from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9 micrograms per cubic meter, as Sean mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. This change was made after review of all available scientific evidence, technical information, and advice of independent scientific panels. EPA says that this will result in significant public health benefits, advance the economy, and improve the quality of life. Additionally, according to EPA, in 2032, nationally, we see some really good trends. The stronger standard will avoid 4,500 premature deaths, 800,000 cases of asthma symptoms, and 290,000 lost workdays, with approximately 46 billion in public national health savings. Once this revision occurred, this in a way starts a clock for us and starts a clock and a timeline for the state to work with EPA, look closely at our monitoring data to determine if we're meeting or not meeting these new standards, and go through the 2-year-long process to ultimately have EPA designate our areas in North Carolina, as Sean mentioned. Next slide. So here we have a designation timeline, or year 1. This is a timeline to highlight some of the key steps in that first year that will be occurring. The second year will primarily be actions taken by EPA, is not shown on this particular timeline. So let's take a look at this timeline quickly. In May, we mentioned is when the new PM2.5 standard took effect. In June, although DAQ of course is looking at our data all year long and has a good sense of our air quality throughout the year, In June, DAQ began looking even more closely at our data and our monitoring sites and to begin our work for state designation work specifically. Also, currently in August, additionally, since we don't have revised ambient air quality standards that often, we began public outreach to share information with the public, including things like this informational webinar that we're having right now. Next on the timeline, in the August to September timeframe, we also need to revise our state PM2.5 NAAQS rule. And for those of you listening who are more familiar with air quality rules, you may be aware that DAQ is currently underway with the rulemaking. This is mostly a procedural step to simply catch up our state rules with the federal standard that's already in place. Next on our timeline, November to December, that time frame, these items will be related to completing what's called an exceptional events demonstration, which will include a public comment period and hearing, and we'll explain this in more detail later in this presentation tonight. Then in the beginning of 2025, DAQ will submit our designation recommendations along with an exceptional event demonstration to the EPA to review. Then EPA has 1 year, that second year, EPA has 1 year to review this recommendation and ultimately make a determination if we are meeting or not meeting this revised standard. Next slide. So here are a few just additional details for completeness about that just mentioned rulemaking process that's underway right now to revise our state rule to match up with the already in place federal standards. Again, this is more of an administrative step or procedural step, something we're required to do to update our state rules. Most of this presentation will focus more on the designation process and about PM2.5 sources rather than this rulemaking step. But we wanted to note it, especially for those of you aware of this rulemaking process underway currently. Next. When the revised standard came out in May, what did DAQ start to think about and really focus on? So since we know that ultimately EPA must designate areas as meeting or not meeting the revised standards, the revised NAAQS, DAQ of course wants to know how our state is doing and how our monitors across the state are doing when compared to that revised standard. To learn more about that, DAQ uses our network of monitors that collects data throughout the year so that we can look really closely at how we compare to this new standard. One important number that DAQ and EPA look closely at is a 3-year average or design value at each monitoring site to see how we're doing in relation to the national ambient air quality standards. So this is an important concept, so I'll repeat it a couple times this presentation. Again, those of you familiar with air quality rules, regulations, and more with air quality in general may be familiar with this concept of a design value. For some, we know tonight this may be the very first time you've heard this word or phrase design value. So keep in mind, if you hear me say design value, I'm talking essentially about a 3-year average, but it's a very important number for our state. So keep that in mind as we talk about our monitoring network and what we see in relation to that revised standard. Remember, design value, basically a 3-year average. Sean, let's go to the next slide. So speaking of monitoring and our monitoring network, every day DAQ works to collect the best available data from our network of monitors. Every year, our data is certified through a rigorous QA process. And DAQ maintains a network of 50 regulatory monitoring stations across the state. 21 of these sites, including 6 run by those local air quality programs mentioned by Sean earlier tonight, are also specifically measuring PM2.5. Now, a lot goes into monitoring our air quality. It's a really resource-intensive, expensive, and time-intensive process to monitor air quality all throughout the year for various pollutants, including particulate matter. So we're not just monitoring for particulate matter, but of course, particulate matter is one important pollutant that we're talking about this evening. And DAQ puts so much energy into this process, however, so that we have really high-quality data, and that we have a really good sense of our air quality and air shed throughout the year. And having high-quality data allows us to communicate air quality information with confidence to the public throughout the year. Sean, let's go to the next slide to look at that network in detail. So here you see basically in a large image of that thumbnail you saw on the previous page. The PM2.5 monitoring networks is spread across the state, and the PM sites on this map are noted in yellow. So the yellow markers indicate where our PM2.5 monitoring sites are, or our PM sites are. There are other colors on this map that represent some other pollutants. And we also hid a few other colors and other markers on there just to help us see this image a little better. And because there are various types of sites, all of which is part of our broader air quality network. Next slide. So when we were looking at that network and we're looking at our data, what did DEQ see when we started looking really closely at these monitors with respect to this revised standard? So here we have a map that shows North Carolina PM2.5 annual design values. And in this case, you'll note that this is from 2021 to 2023. And remember, a design value, if you forgot already, a design value is basically just a 3-year average. It's that important number we talked about a minute ago. Now we'll pause on this slide for a little bit to talk about some of this information we're seeing. And first, I want to describe the legend and call your attention to that at the bottom left so we can talk a little bit more in detail. Green means that less than 9.0, 9.0 being the new standard. Yellow means greater than 9.0 due to exceptional events such as wildfires. And red means greater than 9, but not caused by exceptional events such as wildfires. So right away, we'll notice a few things. 19 out of our 21 monitoring sites shown here are already meeting the tighter standard for PM. That's good news. You'll also notice there are no red dots on this map. However, 2 of our monitors, one in Davidson County and one in Mecklenburg County, were slightly above the 9.0 threshold, and these are noted in yellow. Those are the 2 9.2 numbers you see in yellow on this map. And when we looked at our data, we did see some interesting patterns and interesting information. And when we looked closely, we saw elevated levels from wildfire smokes from Canada specifically from the summer of 2023. Many of you may remember these large exceptional fires from Canada that summer. These types of large, uncontrollable wildfires impacts are considered exceptional events by EPA. And EPA has guidance and procedures for how to handle exceptional events when determining attainment with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So basically, EPA has a process in place with regards to determining if states meet or do not meet the air quality standards, and it directs the states how to proceed, and also directs the states how to calculate their final official design values if there are influences from exceptional events such as wildfires. And we'll talk more about this later as well, specifically in the Clean Air Act designation slides section. Now, importantly, again, in North Carolina, 2 of our monitors, one in Davidson County and one in Mecklenburg County, that were both influenced heavily from exceptional wildfire smoke from the summer of 2023, had design values that pushed over the revised standard for fine particulate matter set at 9.0. And it's important to pause here a moment and note one other thing. EPA has not yet made any designations or determinations if our state is meeting or not meeting National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So I'll say that one more time. So just noting, right now, EPA has not yet made any designations or determinations if our state is meeting or not meeting the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. As we mentioned ago, once the revised standard comes out, which was just a little while ago, this is the start of a 2-year-long process under which the state has the opportunity to work closely with EPA and share more detailed information with EPA as well. Sean, let's go to the next slide, please. So looking at the data across the state, but especially from the 2 of our monitors that exceeded the revised 2.5 standard, it became clear that the summer of 2023 wildfire influences did have influence on our state, which are of course out of our control, but those influences are one of the key culprits for our increased design values that we saw. Now we did notice and observe multiple impacts at multiple monitoring sites as well. Now on this example, the date here is July 17th. You can see a wide range of smoke from those fires. Many states in the Southeast and the Northeast, and even the Midwest, and many parts of the United States saw very high levels of PM from these Canadian wildfires. You may remember orange skylines and some crazy pictures from New York and other areas on the news as a result of these long burning, smoke intense, and far-reaching wildfires. Next. Here we have data specifically for North Carolina showing PM2.5 exceedances over a 24-hour period. Now, our data also clearly showed that in 2023, it was exceptional. We saw a huge spike in 2023 that summer. You notice in that red dotted area on the right side of the chart. So again, why was it so high for 2023? Well, the biggest culprit was these Canadian wildfires and the smoke that came from it. But that wasn't exactly the entire story either. Next slide, please. Yes, there was a huge amount of smoke from these wildfires, and that smoke spread all over the United States, all over Canada, and all over. But it was a combination of both meteorological conditions and wind patterns, along with this exceptional wildfire smoke from Canada, which directly led to the monitors pushing over the revised standards and us seeing impacts here in North Carolina. Here's another example on a high PM day from last summer. This one is from June 7th, as an example. And we had several days with smoke impacts. These are just a few of the examples. Now, it is unusual for North Carolina to get cold Canadian air coming to North Carolina during the summer. And we might see that in winter months when we get snow. Don't usually see it in the summer. It just so happens that this wind pattern was present last summer when Canada was very smoky. So there was transport from the smoke all the way down to North Carolina and again to many other states, as we noted. Now, DEQ continues to look closely at all of our monitoring data and is actively working right now to capture and synthesize all available data and information, which will be shared with EPA as part of that designation process. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we just spoke about the revised PM2.5 standard, and we covered a lot quickly. Thank you for bearing with us. We covered a lot quickly, but we also talked a little bit about what DEQ looks at when these revised standards come out, what data from our monitor is showing, our design values, our 3-year average, our design values, and DEQ's and talked a little about DEQ's ongoing analysis and efforts throughout the year and currently happening now. So we also shared the last few slides some more details about the summer of 2023, wildfires and smoke that impacted our state. But where else does PM2.5 come from? What are the sources of PM2.5 in addition to wildfires? So next, in this next section of the presentation, we're going to share information about sources of PM2.5. We're also going to explain the difference between primary and secondary particulate matter, which is important, and talk about more specifically the components of particulate matter so that we can all have a better sense of it as we move forward and then talk about the clean air designation process. Also, spoiler alert, particulate matter really is a complex mixture of things, making it sometimes difficult to pin down or talk about. Sean, let's go to the next slide with the image. All right, so we're going to pause here on this image so people listening can take a look at it. This image represents many of the sources of the things contributing to our overall air quality here in North Carolina, and where we see PM2.5 coming from. So there's a wide variety of sources. So PM2.5 and other components contributing to PM2.5 are coming from all of these places. Now, on any given day, what our monitors see or detect could be from a wide range of sources. And remember, our air in North Carolina, just like our air and everywhere else, is constantly moving, it's changing, and changing throughout even each day. So let's look and name a few of these sources and pause a moment again on this slide so people can look around and see some of these sources to get a sense of where our PM2.5 is coming from to start to explain and tell that story. So we'll start here on the left side of the screen, or the image, and we have transport from other areas. So we already mentioned transport from other countries, like the Canadian wildfires. Air doesn't really stay in one place. It moves around quite a bit, and transport from other areas absolutely impacts our air and our airshed in North Carolina. We also have natural sources, things including lightning and wildfires like we're talking about. We also have prescribed fires and other fires that can influence our air. Forests emit lots of VOCs, which we'll talk about later, volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. And we also have area or non-point sources. This can be from residential sectors, agriculture sectors, unpaved roads, fertilizer farms, fuel combustion, and a variety of things. We also have stationary or point sources. This includes things like industry, power plants, manufacturing, airports. Additionally, mobile sources or transportation sector also contributes. These vehicles, including cars and trucks, buses, motorcycles, and airplanes, also contribute to our PM2.5 in our state. And lastly, on the right-hand side at the top, we have out-of-state pollution, just noting that it's not just air or influences from really far away that influence us during exceptional events. We also regularly have impacts from our neighbors. Our neighbors close and far away from us are also sharing our air and sharing what's in the air with us. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we can keep talking about where our PM2.5 is coming from. So this chart shows more technically categorized or a more technical categorization of these sectors from an emissions inventory perspective that the state uses to look at where our PM2.5 is coming from. And this particular is from our EPA 2022 version 1 emission modeling platform sectors information. Now, some key sectors are noted on this chart, including biogenics, which includes plant vegetation, soils, trees, lightning, things of that sort. Non-point, these are some of our stationary sources. Non-road, these are off-road vehicles, for one example. We have on-road, other fires, point sources, which are often our stationary sources or our permitted sources. And then also at the bottom there, wildfires, which is unplanned burning, of course. Now, all of these sectors contribute to PM2.5 in our state. The next few slides will include some technical representations of available data sets as pie charts to help us explain in more detail the story of where PM2.5 is coming from for us. And it is coming from a lot of places. Next slide. But first, we need to clarify the difference between and mention the difference between two types of particulate matter. We have primary and secondary PM2.5. PM2.5 is often referred to as either primary if it's directly emitted into the air as a solid or liquid particles, and it's called secondary if it's formed by chemical reactions of gases in the atmosphere. So we have primary and secondary. And on the next few slides and charts, you'll see it noted whether this is primary or directly emitted, or if it's secondary, which is formed by chemical reactions of gases in the atmosphere. So keep that in mind, primary or secondary, as we look at these next couple of pie charts. Okay, next slide. This pie chart shows direct emitted primary particulate matter from some of our most recent data sets. For direct emitted PM, non-point is one of the largest parts of our direct emissions. Non-point includes, if you remember from our image a moment ago, residential sources, fuel combustions, VOC emissions, unpaved roads, agricultural sources, and other sources, which can be hard to pinpoint sometimes. Also notice that wildfires and other fires, such as prescribed burning and open burning, are a large piece of this pie. So this is PM2.5 direct emissions, statewide emissions by sector. But this doesn't tell us the entire story of PM emissions here in North Carolina, of course. Next slide. So again, since we also need to look at secondarily formed PM, the last slide was for direct, primary. This is looking at some secondary sources. DEQ inventories a variety of other key components connected with secondary formation of PM2.5, including NOx, nitrogen oxides, SO2, and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. This pie chart shows NOx emissions by sector, and you can notice on this pie chart on-road being a major contributor to the pollutant, which can then form into PM2.5. On-road includes transportation-related sources, such as cars and trucks and other vehicles. But also, this does not tell the entire story of where our PM2.5 is coming from. Next slide. So next here, we're looking at SO2. So these are statewide SO2 emissions by sector. This is where we see contributions from our state point sources, including things like power plants and industry, for a few examples. Now, like any of these charts, if you just looked at them independently, it wouldn't tell you the whole story. If someone from outside our state quickly glanced just at this chart, perhaps they'd think that clearly this point source this source was all of our problems here in North Carolina, which is not the case. Just as the other ones didn't tell the whole story, this also doesn't tell the whole story of where our PM pollution comes from. Just a piece of the story. So next slide, we're going to look at VOCs. So another piece of the puzzle that we've been talking about is volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. So if you remember, we talked about biogenics, which include plant vegetation, trees, and soils. In our state, if you've been here a while, you've probably noticed that we have a lot of trees. That's a good thing. Trees are a very good thing. And sure enough, for VOCs, we see in biogenics, we see a large portion influencing this sector. So that biogenics, again, includes plant vegetation, trees, and soils. And that's one of the largest contributors to our VOC emissions in our state here in North Carolina. And each state has a different profile and a different makeup, but all of these sources are impacting and contributing to our PM2.5 here in our state. But again, this is just one piece of the puzzle for where our PM2.5 is coming from. And to understand it more fully, we need to take a holistic look at everything and all of our sources closely, of course. All right, next slide. Next couple slides, before we get to our next section, the next couple slides, we're going to talk more specifically about the components of PM2.5. So we just shared some information about the sources, telling the story a little bit of where those sources are coming from in North Carolina. So here we have an example from Garinger High School, our Garinger High School site in Mecklenburg County. But this is a representative example of what we see at a lot of our monitors. So it's just an example so that we can start to get a sense of the components. And I'll direct your eyes to the right side of the screen and kind of that red dotted area as I speak. So we have a lot of information we shared about sources of particulate matter, but many scientists, or if there's fellow geeky listeners out there like us, you might be asking, what is this really made of? What are the components of PM? So our state's mixture of PM, as I mentioned, is going to be different than other states or places in the world, just largely based on those sources. So a careful observer might notice that there's a reason DAQ and other states track emissions and a variety of emissions, but emissions including NOx and SO2, because nitrate and sulfate can be one of those components of PM2.5. Now, in air quality, speciation is the process of separating organic gases and particulate matter into distinct components, and this helps us further understand the story of where PM2.5 is really coming from and what voluntary or regulatory actions could be taken to reduce air pollution. So we look at things in a variety of ways. But a few of our monitoring sites across the state have this special speciation ability to look more closely at the components. And so that red dotted line shows us some of the things we're seeing, and this being one example, but we see salt, soil dust, soot, organic matter, which in this example is quite a large chunk, nitrate, and sulfate as some of those key components in PM. Next slide. So in the components we just saw, we see a lot of organic matter, which comes also from a variety of sources, but if you remember our image, also can come from motor vehicles, cooking oils, household cleaners, as well as plants, vegetation, wildfires. It can come from a variety of places. Now for nitrate and sulfates components, you see here some examples of both man-made and natural sources on this chart. And that's just a simple reminder also to note the sources of PM2.5 and the components are based on man-made, but also natural sources, natural components and man-made components or actions. It is a mixture of both. So it's a complex picture when we're looking at emissions, both primary and secondary. Primary, again, being that directly emitted, secondary gases formed in the atmosphere for particulate matter. It's also a complex picture when we're looking at the components of PM2.5. But this is why DAQ takes a holistic approach to monitoring and carefully looks at air pollution and their sources in a variety of ways. Our division has a wide variety of programs to learn about and tackle all of these various sources of pollution. Next slide. Okay, next, we'll be talking more specifically about the designation process. So I started off talking about the revised standard itself, what our monitoring network has shown us when comparing to that new revised standard. And then we just started talking about the sources and shared some information about the sources of PM and to look at the components. We want to share all of this information this evening to get a baseline of understanding out there for a wide variety of people who might be listening. Now we'll talk more specifically about the designation process. Sean, next slide, please. Thank you. To start this designation process, EPA provides designation guidance in the form of a memo, essentially. In some ways, it's an instruction booklet that tells the states what to do and when they have to do it. Earlier, we spoke about the revised standards starting a 2-year-long designation process. So the first year, if you remember our timeline, the state needs to make a recommendation by submitting the designation recommendations based on the best available data and using all the tools EPA provides. That was the year 1 activities we mentioned in that timeline. And the state must submit a recommendation to the EPA by February 7th, 2025. So there's 2 red numbers on this slide, which are these key dates that we're going to hone in and talk about. So the first year, state needs to submit to the EPA by February 7th, 2025. And as part of this, DAQ looks closely at a wide variety of factors, but 5 factors specifically during this process, including air quality data, emissions and emissions-related data, meteorology, geography and topography, and jurisdictional boundaries. Now, the second year, EPA needs to make final determinations if North Carolina counties and areas are meeting or not meeting the revised standards, and they must complete those designations by February 6th, 2026, that other number in red there. And that's going to be based off the 2022 to 2024 certified data. Now, or excuse me, 2022 to 2024 certified monitoring data. Now, our preliminary maps we generated looked at how we compared to the revised standards of 9.0 are made from data from 2021 to 2023. If you remember when we looked at that design value or 3-year average, that design value map. And remember, it was the summer of 2023, which DAQ saw a lot of influences from those exceptional wildfire data. So that 2023 data, that 2023 summer specifically, will be included in that 2022 to 2024 set of data that EPA will look at when they make their final designation. Lastly, on this slide, we note that EPA, we mentioned in part of that memo, they provide a lot of guidance to state, but EPA expects states to use exceptional events rule when needed to support designations. So let's go to the next slide and talk more specifically about exceptional events and what they are first. So on the last slide, at the bottom, we noted again that EPA expects states to use all available tools and rules that they can provide the state, so that they can provide the states, so that we can provide a clear and complete designation recommendation, including when the exceptional events rule is needed to be used. So what exactly is this exceptional events as defined by EPA? Here's the definition that we're looking at. So it's defined as an event or events, and it's resulting emissions that affect air quality in such a way that there exists a clear causal relationship between the specific events and the monitored exceedances or violations. So it has to be a clear causal relationship. It's not reasonably controlled or controllable or preventable. So it's outside the control of the state. It is an event caused by human activity that is unlikely to reoccur at a particular location or a natural event, and is determined by the administrator, the EPA administrator, to be an exceptional event. Ultimately, they say that it's an exceptional event. So those kind of 4 bullets there are the main definition points for what an exceptional event is. Next slide. Next, I want to talk about the exceptional events demonstration part. DAQ will be submitting an exceptional events demonstration with our designation recommendation on February 7th, 2025. So that was that first number we keyed in on. That's the date that the state needs to take action and submit that to EPA. And as part of our designation recommendation, what we say our monitors are doing and showing will include an exceptional events demonstration. And we're working on this right now. This is something we're actively working on right now to put together. The exceptional events demonstration will ask EPA to remove certain days strongly influenced by Canadian wildfire smoke when calculating the official design value for those 2 monitors we talked about. The exceptional events demonstration for both monitors will clearly show that for North Carolina, the Canadian wildfire smoke negatively impacted our monitors, altering their design values. and they're out of our state's control, and they met all terms of that definition. Now, we recognize that some days with high PM values will still impact public health, and we're taking appropriate actions on those days, especially to inform North Carolinians about smoke impacts and how they can protect their health. And Sean, in the last section of this presentation, will talk more about that in detail, about how DAQ regularly communicates this important information throughout the year, and especially when there's harmful smoke in the air. By submitting this exceptional events demonstration, DAQ expects to show the entire state is attaining or meeting the new PM2.5 standard. Now, this will help DAQ focus its regulatory attention on PM2.5 sources within our control. And keeping our state in attainment or meeting all the standards provides a variety of health and economic benefits for our residents. It's an important thing. And I should pause here again and mention using the exceptional events rule is not unusual. It's not something new. Many states do this already. Many states have done this many times before. It's not something that our state has done many times before, but there's many states have used it over the past few years, including states out in the West that are dealing with wildfires more regularly. And many states in the Southeast are doing the same thing as DAQ is doing and preparing to recommend attainment and or use exceptional events demonstration to show that not reasonably controlled events, they did occur and they adversely affected our monitors and thus altered our design values. Basically, if we take out the days that were influenced by Canadian wildfires, those exceptional days, we can look more closely at what contributes PM levels during the rest of the year. And this helps us better understand what regulatory and voluntary emissions reduction strategies would be most effective to use in our state and focus our attention and resources there. Next slide. So one more thing to note as part of this exceptional events demonstration process that I'm going to leave you with tonight before I turn it back over to Sean. As part of our exceptional events demonstration process, we'll be holding a public hearing and a public comment period. More information about these will be available on the same website you went to register on, and we'll provide the link to the website as well, and it's noted here on this slide also. But this site will also be continually updated with additional information in the next several months. There's already information on there, including a new fact sheet and some other resources for people to go browse, but this site will be where you go to find updated information about this topic. And as we noted in the beginning, all of this work related to the revised PM2.5 standard is ongoing. It's happening right now. And this informational webinar is just one way we wanted to share this important information with you. This webinar was to give a broad overview of these topics and related content. We know there was a lot. We encourage you to come back to this page, however, to continue to learn more and to continue to comment and to continue to participate. You can see the website here, again, daq.nc.gov/PM2.5 updates. Now I'll hand it back over to Sean to speak about how DAQ communicates important air quality information throughout the year, including PM2.5 information, and including some information about smoke from fires. Sean, hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Jonathan. So DAQ, as you just heard, is working hard to make sure our air quality is meeting the new PM2.5 standard. We're going to answer your questions at the end of this presentation, so remember to type questions as we go into the Q&A box. But before we wrap up this webinar, I just want to talk about all of the great things that our division does every single day to protect public health, the ways that we communicate about air quality to the public, because we know that regardless of our attainment status, there can and probably will be a handful of days every year when levels of air pollution like PM2.5 can trigger these air quality alerts. I want to make sure that you know where you can get good air quality information and what to do when these alerts are active, especially during events like wildfires. So first, the Air Quality Index. This is the AQI. This is the primary tool and the primary way that we at the Division of Air Quality communicate how good or bad the air quality is to all North Carolinians. It ranges from green or good on the color-coded scale all the way up to maroon or hazardous air quality. So this is an easy, accessible way to help people better understand at a glance how much pollution is in the air on a particular day. The AQI is based on whatever pollutant is the highest on a given day. That could be particulate matter, but it might sometimes be another pollutant such as ozone. When the AQI is green or yellow, air quality is generally okay. Then once we reach code orange, we will issue an Air Quality Action Day alert, because sensitive groups like older adults, children, or people with asthma or other health conditions, they might need to take action on those days to reduce their exposure. So generally we say that action could be limiting your time, exerting yourself outdoors, but I'll talk more about these actions later. At code red, air pollution levels could impact anyone's health, and everyone should start to take precautions. Things get more serious as we reach code purple or code maroon, which have stronger recommendations for the public to protect their health. The great thing about the air quality index is that it never changes. Even as federal standards are updated or revised, like we're seeing with PM2.5 now, we will always use green to mean good air quality, yellow will always mean moderate air quality, etc. So how do you find out what your air quality on the AQI is? Where do you get this information? Well, our team has worked with the State Climate Office to develop the Air Quality Portal. This is a new official one-stop shop for all of our air quality resources. It provides you with up-to-date current air quality information at all of our monitors and daily air quality forecasts for upcoming air quality conditions for two pollutants, PM2.5 and ozone. We have meteorologists on our team here at the Division of Air Quality, and 365 days a year, they're putting out daily air quality forecasts predicting the AQI for the next day for every county, as well as the mountain ridgetops. I'll mention our partners at Forsyth County produce the forecasts for the 9-county Triad region, and DAQ issues the forecast for the remaining 91 counties. Checking your air quality forecast for the next day can help you plan your outdoor activities and know when to take action. The Air Quality Portal is available on our website. There's a direct link on this slide as well. As I said before, there could be some days when we issue Air Quality Action Day alerts. Luckily, days like this on this slide don't happen very often. This is very rare. This was one of the days last summer when air quality was highly influenced by Canadian wildfire smoke. When we get these code orange, code red levels, we snap into action. We send out alerts through social media. We send out alerts on the Air Quality Portal tool, and we send out alerts through EPA's EnviroFlash email systems to people who are subscribed through that. We'll often post information in both English and Spanish, and we might put out a press release or other materials to make sure folks know about the alerts and what action they should take. When we issue these alerts, we're also sharing information with our partners. That includes the National Weather Service and local news media who act as surrogates and share our information. You can also access your AQI information from EPA's Air Now website and phone app, and many smartphone weather applications such as your iPhone weather app will display air quality information. All of this air quality data comes from DAQ. So no matter where you get your air quality forecast, you know you're getting our high quality forecast from our meteorologists. I want to mention quickly, when EPA tightened the PM2.5 standard earlier this year, it also made an adjustment to the way that the air quality index was calculated for PM2.5. That means now there are more stringent requirements for code green days. Again, what the AQI colors mean will never change. Green is still good, but levels of PM2.5 that used to be considered upper code green are now considered lower code yellow. We often get calls and questions from residents who notice smoke in their community, who want to know where it's coming from. What do I do? What can you tell me about this? There can be many sources of smoke: wildfires, prescribed burns, backyard burning, land clearing burns, other fires, for example. When there's a large fire, it can impact the air quality index in your county. It can impact your air quality forecast, and our agency will send out information to help keep you informed. But even smaller local sources of smoke can have impacts on you. Your eyes and your nose are always the best air quality monitors you have for determining if you should limit your exposure. I'm going to talk more in a minute about ways you can keep yourself safe. I want to highlight first some of the resources we have on our website for smoke and air quality. So we have this webpage. This is a screenshot of our smoke, wildfire, and prescribed burn webpage. It has information on various sources of smoke, their differences and ways you can protect yourself. There's a link here on this slide. There are also links to other resources on this webpage that you'll find useful, including interactive maps for where that'll help you see if there might be large fires or smoke in your area. Some other resources on this page, a lot of great information for what to do when smoke is present. The most important thing you can do is limit your exposure. Reduce your physical activity when there's a lot of smoke outside. When you're exercising, you're breathing faster. So particularly if you fall into one of those sensitive groups, older adults, children of any age, someone with existing heart or lung conditions, make sure you listen to your body and you know what to do. Stay indoors if you have central air or an HVAC system with an air filter. That's going to be the best place for you. If you don't have central air, you can create a clean room in your house using an air filter and a box fan with instructions like this. You can find this resource and a lot more on our website or through EPA. I want to talk a little bit about some other sources of smoke you might encounter. First, prescribed burning. This is a practice where humans might set controlled burns to remove brush and other vegetative matter. This is good fire. It promotes healthy forests and it decreases the severity and the risk of possible large fires in the future. Prescribed burns can still produce smoke that can impact you though, but it won't be to the degree that a large wildfire would. So for that reason, DEQ supports the use of prescribed burning and forest management as long as a smoke management plan is followed. The smoke management plan ensures burners follow best practices to reduce smoke impacts on their communities. The Division of Air Quality works with the North Carolina Forest Service and other groups to encourage training on smoke management. Another type of burning you might encounter is open burning, which is very different from prescribed burning. In North Carolina, it's always illegal to burn trash or any type of man-made or synthetic items. The Division of Air Quality enforces this law. It can take enforcement action against violators. Smoke from burning trash is more harmful than burning natural materials because it produces chemicals or other pollutants that are particularly harmful to health. In certain circumstances, the open burning of vegetative matter like yard debris, leaves and limbs, or land clearing debris, that might be allowed under state law. For more information about what you can and can't burn, when and where, and what those rules are, be sure to check out our website, deq.nc.gov/open-burning. There will be more information there, including a video that explains our open burning rules. And anytime if you have questions about open burning, or if you want to submit a complaint to our agency for investigation about an open burning violation, contact your DEQ regional office, those contacts we mentioned at the beginning of the slide, of the presentation. All right, we're just about done. Wrapping up here, I want to reiterate that we are committed to continuing this conversation with residents and organizations in North Carolina. Jonathan mentioned this webpage that we have up where we're posting information about the revised PM2.5 national standard. The slides from today and a recording from today will be posted on this website later this week. We also have additional resources, a fact sheet up there now that you can download and access that's available in English and Spanish. Be sure to sign up for DEQ press releases to stay up to date with the latest news as well. And you can do all of that from our website. Again, we will be continuing this conversation as we move through the PM2.5 designation process. We will be working with community partners in the coming weeks and months to do further outreach. In Mecklenburg and Davidson counties in particular, where those high design values, those high 3-year averages were noted earlier. If you want to connect or partner with us on this topic, please reach out. We're always looking for ways and recommendations to engage communities. Also, DEQ's environmental justice team is working closely with our division to draft an environmental justice impact analysis of the new PM2.5 national standard in North Carolina. And that report will look at demographics like race, ethnicity, poverty, language, health outcomes, EJ indexes, and other data to inform outreach and support our division in the work that we're doing. We are working hard to protect and maintain clean air in North Carolina. We have many years of success doing so. Meeting these federal air quality standards is our top priority. We will continue to work closely with you, with all of our state partners and stakeholders across North Carolina to build on that success. Again, we recognize that there may be additional days where PM2.5 is on the higher end, no matter the source, and that can affect people's health. So we're committed to communicating the best available information on these days and all throughout the year to keep you safe. So thank you again. We're wrapping up here. We're going to move into a question and answer period. Here's our contact information for Jonathan and I. Again, I'm Sean Taylor, the Public Information Officer. This is how you can contact us and reach out to us if you have any questions or if you think of something later on. I also want at this time to invite our panelists from our DAQ staff to come on, turn on your cameras, join us on the screen and help us answer some questions. So real quickly, I'll introduce the folks joining us today. We have Randy Straight, Chief of DAQ's Planning Section, Tammy Manning, our Attainment Branch Supervisor in the Planning Section, Bradley McLam, one of our staff meteorologists, and we have Patrick Butler, who's Chief of the Ambient Monitoring Section. Again, we're going to be using the Q&A feature of WebEx for our question and answer. We have disabled the chat feature, but if you look at the bottom of your screen in the toolbar, there should be a button with a question mark to turn on the Q&A box. Go ahead and type in any questions you have for our panel into this box. If you're given an option of who to submit your question to, please be sure to select all panelists so everybody can see your questions. And I think we'll just jump in here. We have a few questions already submitted. The first one, will there be a recording of the webinar available to share? I'll go ahead and answer that real quickly. Yes, as we mentioned, we are recording today's webinar that will be posted later on our website, along with the slides at deq.nc.gov/PM2.5 updates. The next question we have is what separates those 3 local air quality agencies from the other DAQ regions? Is there anybody on our staff who can answer that?
Well, Sean, this is Randy. I'll take a stab at it. So each of the counties that are represented by have a local program are within the region that one of the DAQ regions. So, but they have jurisdiction over their responsibilities, including permitting, education and outreach, and enforcement within those counties. So, and of course, Forsyth County does forecasting for that region. They also manage the federal monitoring monitors there in their localities. But there's a great deal of coordination that goes on between the DAQ regional office and the local agencies. So I hope that answers the question.
And Sean, I'll note, this is Jonathan again, I'll also note, and I'll type these responses into the chat as well. And I'll provide a few links for responses for these answers. So I can provide a link also to give some additional information about those DAQ regions and what separates them from that separates those three organizations. So I'll add that in the chat, Sean, as you move on to the next question.
Thanks, Randy and Jonathan. The next question for the panel, it's just a request for a link to our rules development page about the update to the PM2.5 NACS rule. Jonathan, I think you can add a link to there. Always, if you are looking for resources on our website, you can go to ncair.org, and that's the homepage for the Division of Air Quality. And hopefully it's easy to find the specific resource that you're looking for from that page. Next question, this person says that the North Carolina Division of Air Quality is applying to EPA to eliminate the vehicle emissions testing program with the justification that the state can meet the NACS without it. How does DAQ know this? Last year, both the Charlotte and Winston-Salem areas exceeded 9 for PM2.5. Given North Carolina has made so many air quality gains with the emissions testing requirement, why would the state eliminate this protection that helps identify and address the most polluting vehicles, especially when the EPA standard has gotten more stringent?
Sounds like that one's for me, Sean.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is the state legislature passed in the appropriations bill that they passed last year contains a sections 12.7 that removes all remaining counties except for Mecklenburg County from the I&M program. And for Mecklenburg County, they changed the vehicle model year coverage that's subject to the program such that once it's implemented in 2025, about half the vehicles in the program would drop out, and by 2035, almost all of them would drop out. One of the the processes that we have to go through is that we need to get EPA approval and do this demonstration, which we call Clean Air Act Section 110L non-interference demonstration, to show that the emission increases associated with removing these counties from the program will not interfere with ongoing maintenance of the national ambient air quality standards. And in fact, that particular documentation is out for public comment right now. And I'm not sure, anyway, let's see, I think they must, Ms. Kimball must be aware of that, but in that documentation, particularly the non-interference demonstration, we go through the process of explaining what those emission increases are and why they would not, we don't think they would interfere with ongoing maintenance and attainment with the current ambient air quality standards. For the PM2.5 standard, EPA's, that's a little bit tighter now, but still with these increases in emissions, I think for the triad area, we're looking at an increase of about 0.3 tons per day of NOx. And in 2025, and because of the the fleet vehicle turnover and the cleaner vehicles replacing dirtier vehicles and the cleaner fuels, the penetration of electric vehicles, we're expecting the effectiveness of the program to decline by about half from 25 to 2035. So the increase in 2035 for the triad counties would be about 0.12 tons per day of NOx. Our modeling did not include two federal standards that would affect light duty vehicles. So those standards would take effect in 2020, be basically phased in for model years 27 through 2032. So we're expecting additional NOx and VOC reductions from those federal standards for light duty vehicles. And there's also some heavy duty vehicle standards for greenhouse gas emissions, but will also yield reductions in Particulate emissions for that same time period, 27 through 32. So due to the declining effectiveness of the program and also the fleet turnover and these new federal standards and looking at our air quality data over recent years, we feel that removing these counties from the program will not increase the emissions to a level that would cause a violation of a national ambient air quality standard.
Thank you, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question here. What is the period of time for the design value DAQ currently uses? Asking specifically, is it post 2020 when North Carolina had an enormous reduction in driving and improved air quality because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I can take that one as well. Yes, that's a very good question. Right now we're looking at, and I think it was covered early in the presentation, we're using a design value based on 2021 through 2023 data. And so that would exclude the influence of the peak of the pandemic in 2020, which is good. For the final, when EPA completes the designation process in 2 years, they'll actually be using design value data for our monitoring data for 2022 through 2024, the 3-year average. So.
Thanks, Randy. The next question, will any of this change the amount of CMAQ funding for the state?
That is a good question, and I don't have an answer to that one. So I think, well, unless somebody else does, we'll have to get back to them. Respond to that question.
Yeah, that is a good question. This is Jonathan again. Looks like Heather asked that question. I think we could follow up on that and share some information about that to think about that. Her question again was, will this change the amount of CMAQ funding for the state? For those not familiar, CMAQ funding, congestion mitigation air quality funding, helps provide funding for a variety of programs to reduce air pollution. So I think we will maybe move on to, unless someone else wants to just add an initial comment. We have a couple other panelists who might be able to pop on right now and give a little bit of an answer in a general sense.
Hey, this is Robin from the Division of Air Quality. I would imagine, because some of our areas are still in maintenance and not entirely in attainment, our CMAQ funding would remain similar to what we have experienced in the past.
Thanks, Robin and Jonathan. Yeah, well, if we can track down some better information for you, we'll be sure to follow up using the email that you registered with. The next question, we have a little bit of a longer question. I'll read this and then I'll turn it over to the panel. Even though wildfires may be out of our control, emissions from other sources are, and the cumulative air pollutants affect public health. Our lungs don't differentiate, so why is DAQ making the distinction? Wildfire unpredictability and increase in incidence with climate change underscores the need for North Carolina to further reduce pollutants from sources within our control, like tailpipes. Hey, Bradley, it looks like you're talking, but I can't hear you.
I'm not talking. I'm just waiting to see if somebody else wants to.
No, it looked like Bradley was trying to answer.
I'm sorry?
It looked like Bradley was trying to answer, but I can't hear him.
Okay. I'm happy to start, and others can jump in. It's a great question, and what we're doing now with the information we covered through the designation process and use of EPA's exceptional events rule, the monitoring that we're doing, tracking the design values over a 3-year period, is really tracking long-term trends with the evaluate compliance with the standard, each of the NACs. And the exceptional events are recognized by EPA as being exceptional and out of the state's control, and therefore should not be considered or as in terms of the designation process for designating areas as attainment or non-attainment. That's a federal rule that states are allowed to use in their designation process. However, going forward, you're absolutely right. We need to, and I think we've demonstrated this historically with the significant reduction in the emissions that Jonathan covered earlier in the slide presentation. It's an ongoing process, and we absolutely need to continue to look at opportunities for reducing emissions to minimize impacts on the public health. And we do that through a number of ways, through our rulemaking process and through our education and volunteer programs, through our education outreach efforts with Robin and Jonathan's group. And we also, I think, in terms of evaluating kind of the impact of smoke and whatnot, we have our air quality forecast team that's getting the word out on those days to the public to make sure that they're aware of high levels of PM2.5, and in order for the public to decide how to manage their exposure. So we're trying to hit that from a number of different fronts, but it's a very, very good question. And so I'll stop there and see if there's anyone else wants to add to that.
I know Bradley was having some issues with his microphone, but I do have a response he submitted here to me.
Okay.
Bradley, one of our meteorologists, says that we are differentiating the wildfire for the purpose of getting a more representative design value so that we have a better, more accurate representation of how much work we need to do in order to maintain the new EPA NAAQS. Additionally, the 2023 Canadian wildfire event was truly exceptional. June 2023 was the 13th coldest out of the past 129 years in North Carolina. So thank you, Bradley and Randy. We got a couple more minutes here for a few last questions. Next question here is, where can you find the results of air testing pertaining to the Duke coal ash incinerator in Chatham County? For that, I'll just refer folks to our website. If you're looking for resources about a particular industry or facility that's permitted or regulated in North Carolina, we do have documents of all of our facilities on our website through Laserfish. So again, ncair.org, and I think Jonathan will add a couple links as well in response. And this is the last question we have right now. Again, if anybody does have a few more questions, go ahead and type them in. We do have a few more minutes. This question, the presentation showed the relative source contribution for annual levels of PM2.5. Do you have the source contribution for the specific days when there were exceedances of the new standard? I think they're referring to the components of PM that we showed at that
Right.
Derringer site.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that and see if we have that data for those specific days. I don't know if Patrick is still with us or not. I know he was experiencing some issues with the video interface, so.
Yeah, Randy, I off the top of my head, I don't know what they would be, and we'd have to look into those specific days. And there was a lot of days where we exceeded the 24-hour standard, and we'd have to kind of pair those days up with the speciation data that UC Davis does for us to kind of answer that question. But I don't have that answer right in front of me.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. All right, well, if you do have any additional questions that you think of after this call that you want to follow up with our staff, please do so. We're going to share some more information about how you can get in touch with us. Again, all of this information will be posted to our website. If you go online and access the slides, you will be able to click through these links. These are additional resources available to some of the materials that we referenced in the presentation. And again, I just want to give a thank you to everybody who joined us today. One last shout out to this URL where you're going to find more information, deq.nc.gov/PM2.5 updates. I'll leave this on the screen for a minute. If you do have any questions, there will be contact information there, as well as later we'll post a form so you can submit questions to us and one of our staff will get back in touch with you. Thank you everyone for tuning in today and for all of the questions and interest you have on this topic. Stay tuned for more updates from the Division of Air Quality. Have a great evening and good night.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody.